Right. What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. How are my cash physical therapy entrepreneurs? Everyone, we have a really special training for you here today. Every single week, we like to bring to you brand new trainings to help you gain momentum and grow within your cash practice every single week inside of this group. And what we like to do every now and then is whenever we have one of the members inside of one of our coaching programs who have gone above and beyond what is expected in terms of execution, whenever there's someone who has a really inspiring story that we know can help motivate you and help you increase your belief in what you're capable of, we want to bring them in here to share what is working for them right now and what kind of mental loops they had to jump through in order to find the success that they had. And today we have a very, very special interview for you with Dr. S. We call him Wes. Dr. Wes Kendall. He's a really, really good guy. I've been working with him for the last several months, and he's been able to do something that so many people think is impossible. In fact, he even thought it was really unlikely, didn't think it was truly possible because he's worked with other programs before, didn't see the kind of success that he wanted, and didn't think he'd be able to get his practice off the ground and moving where he can go full time with it. And have the kind of lifestyle and time freedom that he now has. Just a few months ago, he didn't think that was possible. And so today, we're bringing him out here to share what strategies are working for him, how he came up with the decision to start his practice and eventually go full time within under 90 days, as I just found out, and ultimately share the perspective and journey that he's been on to help show you and give you the missing pieces that you need to take that next step within your cash physical therapy entrepreneurial journey. So without further ado, please, if you're on here live, comment live, or catch on replay, comment replay, but everyone, regardless of whether or not you're watching this live or catching the replay, give Wes some love for taking the time away from his family and away from his patients to come in here and drop some truth nukes on you and share some value with each of you here today. So give him some love in the comments. Wes, you want to jump on here and turn on your camera?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, there we go, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Today's been a good day. It's been a solid.
Yeah, tell me about it. What happened today?
Yeah, so and we can get into more of this later, but a huge reason of why I left my previous clinical job is I felt kind of burnt out with just going. I felt like I had two jobs. I could treat patients and I could document, and that's kind of about it. So today was great. Was able to knock out the dreaded BLS life support training in the morning. And then after that, work on some ad copy for I'm going to start marketing in a local mom group. So excited about that. And then able to see a few patients, hop on this call, and then have some patients afterwards, and go to the gym. So it's a pretty fun, exciting day. A lot of moving pieces, some phone calls with other potential leads in there as well. So I love that diversity of the day, really.
Heck yeah. And that's how, that's why you had so much success so quickly, because you're clearly a high performance individual. Just the way you structure your day, the way that you make time for not just your relationships, and we're going to get into like the time freedom and lifestyle thing, but also taking care of your biology, because can't take care of your home life and your health, there's no way your business can thrive. So I'm excited that you had a good day and that you're finding time for all that stuff. Awesome. So for all the people who are on here, everyone is excited, and we had over 30 plus people reach out to get access to this training. We've had a lot of people reach out with questions regarding, how you got started, how you set your pricing, how you set your practice model, how you're selling and having these conversations so people keep coming back. We're going to get into all of that. But before I do that, we always, hype everyone up and talk about all the great accomplishments that you've had. But I also like to remind people that really they're no different than you. Okay, you're just a few steps ahead of where they might be. So I want to humanize you a little bit. So can you tell everyone a little bit about your background, what you do, what your practice is, who you work with, that sort of thing?
Yeah, for sure. I was definitely not an entrepreneur. Never thought I would be until I started getting more passionate about the patient population I worked with, and felt like I needed to find a better way to deliver positive outcomes for them. So yeah, I'm primarily outpatient orthopedic experience, heavy biomechanics, taking things from the foot up to the neck and seeing how we can make huge changes there for people. I felt like I was a little stunted, where I was getting a lot of good education on this, but I feel like I was stunted in kind of a traditional model and not really reaching it. So it got to a point where I was just getting so burnt out doing that. And, I saw people, talking about cash physical therapy and doing these types of sessions and really finding their niche. And I couldn't quite tell what that was for me until I started this idea of like a side hustle. And I still didn't feel like I was reaching the right person until I started getting a few patients here and there and found out who was coming to me. And that's kind of how I figured out who I worked with the best, is they found me essentially. And it was women age 30 to 60, hip and back pain. I loved working with them. They loved working with me. And I was very, very good on the treatment, physical therapy part of it, but I had no idea how to get people, how to generate reviews, how to generate word of mouth. Mm-hmm. And I was very much stuck on that front and felt like I wasn't going to make any progress there.
Got it. So you're working in an outpatient setting and it sounded like things were pretty good. Like things weren't bad. You liked it. You had the mentorship. You just didn't really have that fulfillment piece.
Yeah. No, it was definitely, it was a job that most people probably dream about. Like, I had, 6 to 8 people a day, hour-long treatments. It was out of network. That gave me a really good foundation to understand how to provide value to someone because they were going to be paying more for it. So I felt like I gained a lot of confidence on really that customer service, that ability to deliver that value at that higher price point, definitely. But again, I felt like my only job was to treat and to document that. And I needed more variety. I needed something else throughout my day. It seemed like kind of selling myself short, with the degree, with the potential that we have to just see patients and document. So I wanted a little bit more from that. And I ran into a bunch of mental health stuff, like, burnout, and just like I would have days where I just like broke down on the job and like had to like get picked up, essentially, like couldn't even drive, like some really bad days, essentially, in what I thought was my dream job, essentially.
And I can 100% relate to that. I think I said to Max in a conversation, like in life, if you have a lot of goals, if you haven't broken down and like cried in the bathroom by yourself at least once, you're not trying that hard. So I can empathize with that deeply. I think everyone on here, if you've had moments like that, or you felt like you weren't reaching your full potential and that your day-to-day life was in misalignment with what you feel like you should be doing, and that weighs on you. If that is you, drop me or relate in the comments, because it's important for us to talk about these things, be okay to share those things, because everyone feels like they're alone. And that's where a lot of the break comes, or that crushing feeling comes from. And you shouldn't be ashamed or embarrassed of that. So one thing I do want to ask you about, just to help put this into words that people can relate to, is what that fulfillment piece truly meant for you, because this is ultimately why you started your cash practice. Like, what was the thing you ultimately wanted? Where do you feel the most fulfillment?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of places I feel a lot more fulfillment, but it's like, the first thing that comes to mind is like, I feel like I just got my time back, essentially. Like I'm working probably harder than I ever have, but I have more energy. I have more time. I can structure it how I need to. And that's led to more time with my wife, being able to take trips to visit family and still run this business while doing it. So that stuff's been, like a complete game changer for me. Definitely. It's been more time in the gym, prioritizing doctor's appointments, getting that, the the car fixed that's been waiting on that, like all those things that just would seem to add up that I wouldn't have energy or bandwidth for. It's like that, it's just able to integrate all of that in. So it's been wonderful.
Yeah. And I'm so happy for you because I know what that jump was like. And I want to talk about what that jump is. But before we go, I want to jump a little bit ahead and tell us like where your practice is now. I mean, you started with us kind of like mid-February. We kicked off your ads right around the end of February. Now, where's your practice right now? How have things been going?
So yeah, so you want to talk numbers or
whatever you want to share? Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I think in the month of February, I think I did about $0 in sales. I think in January, I probably did about like 800 or so. I sold a package to my mom. And
love the moms.
Yeah,
everyone drop some love for the moms in the comments.
Yep, exactly. Kind of a, the beta tester. But then, yeah, we started running the ads towards the end of February. I think by March, I'd probably sold about 2 or 3 packages. I think it was about a little over $2,000. April, it picked up a little bit more and was around like 4,500. And then by that point, I had enough patients scheduled in May and enough consistent leads coming in where I could no longer, I was only working 1 day a week. So I was just working on this on Wednesdays, and I was working in the clinic Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So I only had 1 day available to treat patients and was able in April to make about $4,500 just 1 day a week. So you put that on top of what I was making originally was a big jump. And then, yeah, kind of looking at the consistency of leads coming in from Facebook ads, getting them generating more word of mouth from some of the strategies I learned from you guys. And then I could look at May and be like, no, I need $10,000 a month to do what I need to do, essentially full time, to replace my previous salary, pay all the overhead of the business I was developing. And I just jumped off, and in May did 15K in sales. And that was huge. That was exciting. That was a ton of fun. And that was like, okay, this thing works. Like, way more time. There was a big learning curve in terms of how to structure my time. That first week or so, I was all over the place. I had no idea what to do. But then as I've gone, I figured out, okay, where do I put in time for marketing, time for seeing patients, all that sort of stuff. I will admit I took my foot off the gas a little, after hitting 15K, because I was comfortable there. And then, that definitely hurt me kind of at the beginning of June and into July. But again, in June was able to do about 10K, which is again, that number I needed to hit, and still getting referrals. And then now I'm in July, and I think July has been kind of the most fun yet because I'm getting the hang of things and, reaching out. I love the concept of the Dream 100 that you guys talk about. Like right now I'm compiling that list of just like 100 people that, I want to have relationships with, to refer patients, to have patients see me, and just create a really good network for people to, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area and the peninsula, and I'm kind of shocked at how poor some of the systems are around here. Like we've got UCSF, Stanford, Kaiser, big health centers that are just kind of failing people. And so now working on this Dream 100 in July, and reaching out to mom groups and Pilates studios, personal training studios, primary care physicians, and networking with those people has been a ton of fun. And then still building that caseload, and now people are at the point where they're re-upping on their initial packages. I just had someone re-up for the 3rd time. So it's just like, it's fun. It's still stressful, but it's a different kind of stress.
Right. It's stress that you put on yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a much more fun game to play, as you said. Is there, when you say fun, like, what do you mean by it?
It's like I feel like I have this thing that I can constantly mold and shape into the best version that I think it is, and the best version that will help my patients and what's needed around here. So that's what I was missing when I was working as a staff PT, is that I needed something that was constantly changing and evolving, growing, and suiting my lifestyle and my patients' lifestyle in a way that wasn't being served by the other healthcare facilities around here.
And what kind of lifestyle is it? Like, what's the difference between what you were able to provide people where you were and like what you're doing now that just feels better for you and feels better for your patients?
I think the main thing is the direct access, and getting people, utilizing these Facebook leads and leveraging referrals from existing patients to get people into the clinic before they're going to their surgeon or their primary care. Yeah. And from you guys kind of really honing that patient experience, so that from your first interaction with them to your last, like, they had a great experience. Like some of the more recent reviews I've got have been like absolutely like stunning to me. That just their entire experience throughout the plan of care was so positive, and in a place that didn't waste their time. I called them on Monday and we got them in on Wednesday. And then, you get them partially out of pain that day. And, by 10 weeks, you've gotten them to just such a better place. And, previously, sometimes people wouldn't be getting in to see you until, like way later. So, right. So that's been a huge point for me, is just that patient care experience from beginning to end has just tremendously improved.
Yes. Who wants to hear more about the patient experience and how it evolved and what he's currently doing that's getting people to re-up 3 times for packages? Drop experience in the comments if you want us to talk more on that. Otherwise, we'll just skip over it and talk more about the other stuff. So if you want to hear about it, drop experience in the chat and we'll make sure we circle on it. So I want to, now that we know like where you are, where you ended up, let's take a few steps back. Let's go back to January, February, when you were struggling to get this thing off the ground. Like, what were you trying? What wasn't really working? What did that look like?
Originally I was trying creating, as far as marketing, I was pretty bare bones. Like I would try creating some posts on social media, and I had a good idea how to create, a funnel of getting people interested and driving some referrals like that, but it just did not suit my personality. And that was kind of one of those moments where it's just like, I need to continue chasing things that feel natural to me, not because they're easy, but because they go well with how I structure my day, how I structure my mindset. So then as I stopped doing that, because I wasn't feeling good about that, I didn't really have any real marketing source. I was renting a little space in a gym, and I thought that I would get people from there, and I would talk to the trainers, and they would say like, oh yeah, I have this person for you, I have this person for you, but I couldn't get that person in. Like I couldn't actually get that referral to come in, and that's something that you guys have definitely helped out with, like with the the referral cards and just nurturing those relationships with the personal trainer, being more forward about, okay, let me call this person for you, like this person, you've talked about them, they're not reaching out, let me do it, and really putting the emphasis on myself to reach out to them and drive that relationship.
Excellent. So obviously before you were taught in some marketing strategies that just didn't feel in alignment with who you were, how you kind of where you get your energy from. And so consistency was an issue there because it didn't bring you happiness or fulfillment while doing it. So what about what you're doing now? And I guess right now you've mentioned like organic marketing, you're doing some paid ads. Is that everything that you're doing to acquire patients right now?
So yeah, the paid ads, kind of bringing in, a few people a month, but then also leveraging referrals from existing patients, and then doing the Stream 100. That's kind of the main thing. I haven't done workshops, and just trying to build that stuff out a little bit more, getting better at writing the ad copy. You and I talked briefly about the healthcare ad copy, still working on that. But just, and just listening to my patients too. And, listening like, okay, you brought up your husband once or twice, like, how about I call him and, and let's get him in here. So just getting better at that, that sort of thing, is kind of most of the marketing. That's my biggest part that I'm still working on, is getting those systems still fully in place.
And that's something, the networking, the workshops, the Dream 100, that's a long-term play, because relationships, especially if you're going to do it the right way. If you want to stand out when you're building relationships, you play the long game, because everyone's going in there saying, hey, I'm so-and-so physical therapist. I feel like I can help your people do this. Here's a business card, thinking like that's going to make them want to have a real relationship with you. And so I think you're doing it right, being patient with it, giving value first with those referral cards.
The first example you used was definitely what I was doing prior to joining the program, was handing out business card here or there. I would never hear from anyone. And now doing walking into a personal training gym, introducing myself, doing a free assessment for them, give them an idea of what I do, and then go do a session with them, personal training, get a good understanding of what they do, and that, building those relationships. That's part of the fun and that I've been having, and I think that's gonna definitely work out.
Heck yeah. And you're getting a lot of love in the Facebook group from Mark and your story of kind of overcoming the hardships of entrepreneurship and being a physical therapist, getting a lot of agreements on big companies kind of failing the patients, and a lot of folks, Tina, Brent, James, Ty, all asking about the experience. We'll get into that in a moment here. And Mark is asking about the referral cards, and we're going to talk about what that is. I'm going to let you describe it in a moment. But out of the organic marketing that you're doing compared to the paid ads, someone had asked, which one of those is like the place to start? Like for you, what was the biggest driver for new patients over the last several months?
Easy. That the paid ads was definitely the thing that helped me go from, working on this 1 day a week to 5 days a week. Was pretty much all those patients were from paid ads for the most part.
It's starting to level out a little bit with the Dream 100 stuff.
I'm pretty early on that stuff. I've started to see a little bit more trickles from that stuff. But still, I first started, 5 days a week in May, up until that, it was 1 day a week, taking calls from leads at lunch and, on the way home from work and stuff like that. So definitely ads at the beginning drove this process.
Beautiful. And let me know if that answered your question, Mark, regarding that. And those things tend to taper off, but it's best in our experience to start with the paid ads, because then when you are networking, doing those things, you can do so with confidence because you already have cash flow coming in. You don't need them to say yes to you, which is a powerful place to come from. Can you quickly describe what the referral cards are for everyone on here who's like, what the heck are those?
Yeah. Should I grab one?
Yeah. If you got one, heck yeah.
Oh, I've always got one.
Got to keep those handy.
Yeah, so I don't know how well people can see it. So it's kind of this credit card, right? You got to go high quality on the order. It is essentially a $100 credit off of an initial assessment, and these have been really cool as far as both the patient experience and referrals. I usually give them out to existing patients at about visit 3 or 5. after they've hit like a major goal. So like I just handed one out yesterday to someone who had a disc herniation 2 years ago, was told she couldn't run again, and has just been pretty inactive for 2 years. About 5 visits in, she's running 2 or 3 times a week, pain free. Give her that kind of as a reward. And, for her, it's like, oh, yeah, no, I'm doing well. And you see that. So kind of the appreciation there. But at the same time, she's like, oh, my friend has been talking about this too. I can give this to them. So it works on 2 fronts there. That's mainly how I've been utilizing it. Or after I've done an assessment with like a personal trainer and had them come in and spend the time and nurture that relationship, then giving them like 2 or 3, ideally trying to make them as, scarce as possible to add a little bit of the value. But then they can hand that to people who they feel like would match up with my services.
Nice. I love that. I think I'm glad that you're utilizing them to their full potential. A lot of people don't. And for everyone who's watching it, pro tip on using referral cards, don't give them discounts. Don't put 30% discount on there. Give them the actual dollar value that's on there, because it's perceived entirely differently. Do you want to touch on that, or do you want me to explain it?
No, go for it.
Okay, so when you give someone a 30% discount, before they can receive that discount, they first have to buy something. That is how our brains perceive it. But when we hand them a $100, $50 voucher, that is giving them cash. And even though it's the exact same thing, it's the exact same end result, the way it's perceived is you gave them something first. They now have $100 that they can go and spend how they want to do it, versus giving someone, if you come in and buy something, you get this 30%. No, instead, you're giving them value up front that they get to go and spend. And even though it's the same, it's perceived very differently that they're much, much more effective. They're, as Wes said, they're fun to give out because people get excited about them.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's 100 different directions I could go in this, because you said a lot of different things that we don't get to talk a lot during these interviews, but I promise I'd get you out of here within 45 minutes. Yep. We had some really good questions from the audience and commenting in the group, asking for specific things. James Babana just designed mine off the template. Excited to have them printed too. My man. Good. Awesome. Yeah, get those out.
Got it.
Johnny, it takes time on those relationships. Nice work. 100%. Yeah. Heck yeah. A lot of love coming in the comments. So
yeah, I think I was just talking to Johnny about those.
He's a good guy, man. I love Johnny. So the first question, I'm going to put them in chronological order, not the order that they actually came in, but the order that makes sense. Is, when you first got started with us, have you made any changes to your practice model? Are you charging things differently? How are you structuring your packages? Kind of talk us through that.
Yeah. So, I've changed a lot, definitely. And the biggest thing I would think is, obviously the running the voucher with the paid ad, that it brings someone in. I was doing initial assessments for $250. I already had pretty good, pricing, because I was working out of network before. So my assessments before were actually like 300 and like 275 area, but we were doing some courtesy billing for people too. So they got a little extra benefit out of it. But then, when I started, I was about 250 for the eval and about like 200 for the follow-ups. But it was that I was creating such like a barrier with that eval, that then I started running the promos where, okay, let's drop that to like 60% off at, $97. And all of a sudden, like, people are way more interested in it. And, I can provide them a ton of value when they come in for that $97 appointment. And then on the back end, then sell them, on the treatment plan in the package. And that part I wasn't doing at all. I wasn't selling packages, because I didn't know how to structure pricing with them. So you guys gave very good advice on like, all right, if you're offering, 6 or 10 or 16 sessions, you're going to want to discount it so much, for a paid in full, versus if they give you a verbal commitment, you can discount it this much. And that's been super beneficial, because people have just jumped right on that. Essentially, they're like, oh, okay, like I'll I'll save, if I pay for all of these up front. And what happens is that, I get paid immediately, which helps me reinvest in the business, pay my salary, those sort of things. But then also people aren't cutting out of their plan of care. If they're bought into it, then they're going to invest more of their time and effort into it as well. And that's something I've always believed in, and always believed in the idea of, if we discount the value, then we discount the care. And so making sure that people really understand that investment. You guys taught me how to educate people on that. So that was huge. What was the rest of the question?
The main one is, just how many, what are your visit quantities based off your packages? Are you doing 6 and 10 packs?
Mainly 6, 10, and 16 are the main ones. Primarily 10 for most people. They're usually I start that off at $200 for 10 sessions. They can go, $200 a session, or they can do the paid in full at $1,600. So, they get a really nice, I think it was 22%. I can't remember the exact discount, but I've sold enough of those to where that number is going to move up closer to $1,750.
And honestly, the monthly recurring revenue from people who don't pay up front is awesome. You need that as a business, just to protect yourself from slow months. But I mean, for us, 50% of people end up paying in full, maybe even a little bit less than that. And that's awesome. I'm happy to give up the next year, $500, $600 they pay in full, because that's our ad budget. That offsets all of our ad spend, so we can start scaling a little bit faster. What kind of percentages on close rates have you been looking at from pay as you go versus full pays?
They're pretty much, I'd say 95% full pay.
Man. Yeah.
I've got 2 people that are pay as you go, and they were from they followed me from my previous job. So that's what they were used to. And they just kind of pop in here or there, but pretty much, with your guys' help on the initial onboarding, and then the evaluation process, I haven't really had much pushback as far as the paid in full. They're like, yeah, no, that makes sense.
Right. And I like the way that you actually made it where it's a complete no-brainer. But that is a high conversion rate. You should definitely bump that up a little bit.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Another question we had that you actually touched on a little bit was billing. Do you provide super bills? What does that process look like for you?
Yeah. So when I first started the process, I did not have an EHR. Chatting with AJ, who did kind of my initial calls, recommended PT Everywhere. He explained why, it made sense to me. So I started using PT Everywhere, and that generates the super bill automatically. Just make sure that patients have access to that. But only one person has actually gone after submitting those super bills. Everyone else just kind of recognizes the investment, and if they see the value that you provide, it's pretty easy for them just to make that investment without having to worry about the super bill.
Totally. When the value's there, people love spending money. It's fun to buy coaching programs and physical therapy packages and other sorts of services like that, when you know that it's helping you become a more high performance individual, because it bleeds into all parts of your life. So love that you're doing that. Thanks for answering that. The other question, they kind of coincide with one another. They're curious about, how do you even get people to want to buy packages? How are you priming them to do that? And we had a lot of people talking about what's the patient experience look like? How are you getting people to do this? So I think they're kind of similar. So why don't you kind of talk about what the patient experience looks like, and how you're kind of pre-framing them and priming them to be ready to buy a package by the time you get there?
Yeah, that's there's a lot that goes into it.
Don't just pick what first came to your mind and what would be most valuable.
And this is the main reason why I joined the program too, was this is what I felt like I was lacking. I felt good about assessing and treating, but I didn't feel good about how to deliver this full patient experience. So really the first thing that comes to mind is when, after I have my first conversation with someone and I've detailed what I do, what they can expect, get them excited about the goals and the things that I can help them reach. And when they find out just that they're on the phone with the doctor of physical therapy, they're super excited just right there, because so many people are so used to trying to navigate these phone trees and get into all that sort of muck. So from right there, they're already more excited that you're taking that time to reach out to them. And then from there, when you get them booked for the assessment, and you guys have taught us to send this automated drip sequence that's kind of like 3 days of onboarding. It gives them my location, parking info, how I'm actually going to walk them through the assessment process, what they can expect to leave with after the assessment, and then another day or two of success stories similar to them and how I've helped other people like them achieve those goals. And also integrating in their initial paperwork, the evaluation accelerator, so that when they're coming in, we're not focused on the paperwork, we're focused on them. We can get in more treatment, more assessment time. So I've had really good, feedback. This, like, when people come in, they're like, what, like, is that the paperwork? Like, I'm done. Like, yeah, that's like you're good. Let's start. And then, obviously going through a very detailed assessment, injecting, you guys taught me how to inject nice wins into the assessment so they could feel that success on that first day, not that I'm just here to exercise, let's go work on it, but really injecting those emotional wins onto that initial assessment, and getting them, when they're leaving, they're pumped, they're excited. And then from there on out, after they leave, send them a nice post eval summary of what we went through, what they can expect to feel afterwards, and that I'll be checking in the next day, and that I'm going to be with them throughout this process. So then, right, you're really having all these different touch points with them, and you're showing so much care for the patient that they haven't received before. And they really value that. So I've gotten tons of good feedback on that. And that's ultimately why people have, it's kind of a no-brainer to pay for the package. They're like, yeah, this has been great already. And then by the time we're finishing, they're like, yeah, you delivered on everything. And they're like, let's do it again. So it's been, does that answer it?
You actually got me it honestly got me a little emotional, really excited, just because of how well you have followed along and executed and remembered and understand everything, which I don't think you probably don't realize how rare that is, that someone can recite why, everything, and also know why. Because most people just kind of pick little things, and yes, they're successful with it, but as the person that put all that together, it just, it's refreshing to hear it relayed so perfectly.
Well, I have you to thank.
Yes. Yeah, it's been fun. You make it really fun to work with you. So when you get to the actual pitch, and this is where everyone gets nervous. This is where it makes their hair stand up on the back of their neck. They start rambling a little bit. With the process that you've put in place, do you feel like you need to do a whole lot of pitching and selling, or do you feel talk us through that?
No, I feel like I do no pitching or selling. I can't, maybe it was Luke or AJ. I can't remember who it was, but I mean, the ultimate advice was just to keep the provider hat on. Essentially, don't. That was you? Yeah. Just don't put that sales hat on. There's no need. It's I just spent I spoke with you on the phone. I read your evaluation accelerator. I just evaluated you for an hour, getting deep into, the psychosocial history, injury history, what their goals are. And if you can, while you're going through that process, if you can then educate them on a treatment plan that's going to help them reach all of those goals that they talked about, then you just tell them this is going to take 10 sessions. This is what it costs, and shut up. Right. And then, and then most people are just whipping their card out. They're like, let's do the package. Let's do it.
Let's go. Man,
Yeah,
you executed so perfectly on everything. I'm so excited to see what it is that you're able to accomplish. You know, if this is what you've done so far and you're just so new as like an entrepreneur, but you have the work ethic, you have the belief, and you follow the process, and you're so freaking coachable. So where you could be 1 year from now, tell us, where do you want to be 1 year from now?
Oh man. Yeah, that's a great question. And this is where like Ty always like kind of nudges me a little bit. You know, so right now I'm renting a space like within a wellness center that has like an attached gym. So I'm renting a room in there. 1 year from now, I would love to be in my own space. You know, I think it would be great to have like another PT, you know, at this point next year, where I can scale down treatment a little bit more and focus on kind of some of the more continue with the Dream 100 stuff and growing the brand. But it's still so early. I'm constantly like reeling myself back in and be like, let's get a few months of this going before I start jumping ahead. But the first main goal would be my own, kind of brick and mortar clinic, outfit for everything that I need as far as the gym, and like what my patients would need kind of locally. That's the first main focus. And then it would be like, all right, let's get an admin, let's get a PT. I know you guys can help with that stuff later on for sure.
Well, follow your gut, follow your heart. It's all going to happen in divine right timing, exactly when.
I remember telling that to Ty, like, I'm like, yeah, maybe like 4 or 5 years, like I'll have, maybe like a clinic like this. He's like, what about like the end of the year? I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, don't sell yourself short. And that's the most important thing about masterminds like this, because you need people around you to show you like your current belief isn't nearly as high as it should be in yourself, and you're capable of doing so much more. Look at Chris Smith. When he was with us, he's exactly where you are now. 1 year later, he's doing $70,000 months, and he doesn't treat or do anything. That's why he coaches in our program and runs his practice marketing. Or Jason Rocca, he didn't think he'd have a practice or have a team until or he didn't think he'd be full-time in his practice until January of this year. He hired his first person before the end of last year, and that was just 6 months in.
That's who Ty was talking about.
Right. It's crazy. And so take your time with it though.
And I believe it now, because like when I was talking to AJ in like January, and I was like, yeah, do you think I'll be able to like leave my job in 3 months? He's like, oh yeah, no problem. And then at the accountability call, bringing up with Luke, he's like, how many patients do you need to do that? I'm like, 10, 15 a week or so. He's like, oh yeah, done. I'm like, I still don't believe it, but okay. And then literally like maybe like 6 weeks later, it was like done. It was cool.
Incredible.
So I believe it when you guys say it.
Right. You're a believer now though?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So to close this off, because I know I am right on time, actually, tell us, for anyone who is trying to get their practice off the ground, they're feeling stuck, what is your number one best advice that you have for them?
Sign up for Clinical Marketer. Obviously, that's an easy one, but do it sooner rather than later. Life's going to keep coming at you. I felt like when I did it wasn't even the optimal time. It wasn't when I planned on doing it. Like I had just finished like with another program, and that, went okay, but not great. So, I was like, okay, I'll just slow play it, but I would have been still doing that now. I think you just have to jump in, embrace it, and just follow your mission. Really, like having a good, solid mission that you can stand by. Like whenever I have like my lows, like I just think about, okay, but I've got this person coming in tomorrow. I can really help this person. not focus always on the money or the business, but I can help this person. I'm in a unique, position to do this. That's, I think that's what kind of keeps me going through those low lows, but jumping in sooner rather than later is the biggest thing. Yeah.
I love that. And any advice for anyone who's watching this, who's considered joining clinical marketer, but they're just like, just on the fence, anything?
I mean, I was on the fence too. Yeah. When I started, definitely, there was, when I ended my first call with the agent, he's like, I just don't know how you're going to get patients. And we ended the call. I'm like, he's so right. I don't know how either. But, I was able to pay for the program. I think within 2 months, was able to pay fully for the program. It's such a small investment compared to what you'll get out of it, as far as the systems, the people you meet and get a coach with. I'm in a position now where I feel like for the first time, I'm actually helping people the way I intended to. It's like, this is the first time I've actually been passionate about being a physical therapist. Like, I thought I would have been in like non-clinical work or something because it was just killing me. But now it's like, I'm at the point where like people are coming in and I'm so excited to see them because I can help them. And a lot of that has had to do with the automations and systems I've learned from clinical marketer. But then also think about the time for your family too. Like this Friday is my 2-year anniversary with my wife, and I was able to block off Friday and we're going to go and have a great day. Don't have to think twice about it. So there's so many reasons to jump into something like this and just never look back, really.
Man, I can't tell you how happy and proud that makes me of not just you, but the whole clinical marketer team and what we're doing, because that's really what our mission is, to give people back their power and allow them to live life on their terms and impact people, but also have that time to have the family and work balance that they want. So I'm so happy for you. I'm glad that we found each other and we're able to work with one another. But one thing I will tell you, you're going to be so incredibly successful no matter what, whether you don't, we may have gotten things expedited, but you, the type of person you are, the chip on the shoulder that you have, how eager you are to learn, and how well you execute, you're going to be so incredibly successful. So I hope you know that, and I'm honored to get to help expedite things for you.
Thanks. Awesome. No, it's good to hear that, because it is scary. It's a lot of work, and it's nice to have that support from you guys.
Yeah. Well, you're stuck now. You're never going to be able to do anything else. Once you start in entrepreneurship and get a taste of it.
I know. Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here. Everyone, give Wes some love in the comments. He shared an insane amount of value. Very few people that we've actually interviewed have been able to recite and actually break down the process the way Wes has. So definitely worth going back, rewatching this, take some notes. If you have any questions for him, drop them in the comments. Thank you all so much for being here. Wes, thank you again.
Cool. Thanks. It was a pleasure.